Hello again.
Hello again, my sweet Emma and Eric. I still love you, of course. Um,
I love you too, Mama.
Now, we're probably going to do this in two parts because Hugh
Okay.
Hefner is a pretty big dude and he's
Okay.
gotten so many requests. So, is there any way that you can go get him, Eric?
It's like, I'm on it, Mama.
On it.
I'm on it, Mama. That was that. He's like, I just had him in the next room.
Oh, okay, well, that was easy. He was in the green room.
The green room.
Hello, Mr. Hefner.
He's saying hello.
What does he look like, Emma? What's he dressed in?
He looks like the way I always see him on TV with the robe kind of thing, the
Oh,
reddish robe, and I would say he looks like he's about maybe 30, 35, something like that. He
oh,
looks pretty young to me. Not like I remember him with the gray hair. He's got nice dark black hair.
okay, cool.
He looks handsome. We'll say that.
Well, flirting with him already. Hugh,
Oh, sorry.
Hugh, thank you for coming in and agreeing to be interviewed.
He's saying you're very welcome. I'd love to be a spokesperson for my life, he says.
Good. First of all, let's start out with the obvious. Tell me about your childhood. Tell me about your mother.
Well, he's saying, well, I grew up in a time where, let's just say that everything was pretty strict in those days. My parents were Methodists. I don't even know what that is, but that's what he's saying. And he's saying, so everything was very restricted, lots of rules, lots of regulations. I had a brother, he says, but ever since I was little, from a pretty early age, he says, I was interested in, because you have to understand, my mom and my dad, they were not the huggy, lovey kind of people. There were no hugs given ever. There were no kisses given. There was no talk
Oh,
about feelings.
that's
So
terrible.
everything was very like that. And so I was kind of a person who I wanted hugs. I wanted kisses. I wanted affection and physical contact.
Yeah.
But it was not allowed in my family. There was no touching.
Yeah.
So from a very early age, because I could see other people holding hands, hugging, kissing, and it didn't happen in my family. So that was very weird in my eyes. And so I got really intrigued about why people do the things they do. Why do we hurt each other? Why do we love each other? So from a very early age, I became really fascinated with psychology and the behavior of people. But I was also very much into comic books and superheroes and all of that, in that aspect, I was a pretty normal kid.
Okay.
But I can't say that my parents didn't love me. They did. They just didn't show it. That's just how it was. So as I grew up, I kind of, I didn't want to end up like my parents. I didn't want to be that way. I needed affection. I needed attention. I needed loving. And so as a kid in school, I would be the clown mascot in some way or form. I would always pull out pranks and squeeze the girls' tushies and things like that.
Oh, of course you would. Yeah.
It was just my way of seeking connection, seeking a physical touch. I needed that. But yeah, I was the clown of the whole class, and humor was my way of feeling comfortable in a social environment. Everything was so different from the home situation. I wanted to be loved. I wanted to be seen. I wanted people to adore me in some way or form. It was an ego. It was just a lack of human connection.
Well, everybody wants connection. Everybody wants connection. Now, what motivated you to found and publish Playboy in the entire enterprise?
Well, I loved writing. That was one of my things. I loved
Okay.
writing. I loved drawing little cartoons and things like that. And so I did go into, although I have a bachelor degree in psychology, I also did classes on writing and things like that. And so I started a job where I was publishing a few things here and there, but I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to be in charge of what I was allowed to write, because it
Yeah.
was always, you can't write this, you can't write that.
Yeah.
And it feels like he was in a kind of a restrictive um, working environment, and he really didn't like that. And so I did what I always dreamt I was going to do. I always knew that I was going to publish something myself. I needed to wake up the people. I needed to have my voice heard. I wanted to change things about society because I didn't like the way that when it came to physical contact, when it came to sex, when it came to love and all of that, that it was so restricted and it was really controlled by church. You weren't
Yeah.
allowed to have sex until you got married. And if you did, you were a sinner. You weren't allowed to do this. You weren't allowed, women weren't allowed to be sexy.
Mm.
No, you had to cover yourself up. You had to be decent, no cleavage. And even in the daily life, it was the man who decided, when they're going to have sex, how it was going to be like. Women really didn't have a lot of options in that in those days. And I know for people now that seems very hard to
Yeah.
understand, but it really was that way. It
Sure.
really was that way. I was in after World War II kind of mode, and that's just how it was. Before that, when the war was going on, there was actually a lot more freedom in sexuality and in all that. The men were
Oh
were
yeah.
abroad, they were fighting, and so the women had to take over and kind of took over society for a little bit. But as soon as all of that was over, they went back to being the perfect housewife,
Yeah.
and you needed to be the perfect husband, and everything was supposed to be according to rules. And I wanted to liberate that. I wanted to get rid of those really strict rules and regulations because it didn't make anyone happy. Women were miserable in their sexual relationships, and
Yeah.
men, were also miserable, and they didn't know how to fix it because the women weren't supposed to talk about sex. Don't
Well,
talk
what
about it.
what do you think about women in general?
Now, see, I know that he says a lot of people think that I was this horn dog and that I really didn't appreciate women, that I didn't care for them, that
Oh no, no.
I was just using them. A
Mm-mm.
lot of people do think that, but it was really on the other end. I adored them. I saw them as the more powerful human being. Let's just call it that. They were very strong. They were very um, creative, a lot more creative than men are. And so for me, I really um, I really had a fascination for them. They really intrigued me. I wanted to get into their psyche. I wanted to understand them, and so yeah, I loved women. I really did.
That's awesome. Well, who was the love of your life? If you had to pick one, there's probably more than one, but if you had to say one.
If I have to say one, oh, he's going. That's going to be tough. I loved every woman I was with, although there were some girlfriends where the love went by real fast. Um,
Well, you don't have to pick one if you don't want to. That's fine.
yeah, because I loved them, I loved all of them, but all in a different way. So it's
Okay.
really hard to say you were my biggest love.
Yeah.
I think my biggest love was my magazine and what I did with it, how I know a lot of people think I didn't do anything, but not in my book. The way I see my life review, I did a lot of
Oh
great things for
yeah.
sure.
Now, do you think your work aided in the liberation and empowerment of women, or did it contribute to the objectification and suppression of women? I guess it depends on how
Yeah, he
women
says it depends
look
on
at
how
it.
you want to look at it. You
Yeah,
know,
but
everyone
what was
have
your
a different
intent?
opinion on that. For me, I gave people, men and women, um, the feeling that it was okay to be sexy. It was okay to have fantasies. It was okay to have a sex life that was more than just making babies. It was okay to enjoy sex,
Yeah.
to find pleasure in it. That it's not a sin. It's part of the human condition. It is part of who we are. And if it wasn't supposed to be so much fun, it wasn't going to be created like that. So we are supposed to enjoy it. We're supposed to, in some way or form, it liberates us because it leaves us in a very vulnerable state. So we have to trust the other person really well in order to make a sex life and a great sex life. So
So
it bonds and creates great relationships and trust in each other.
So I'm getting that you meant it to be liberating and empowering for women, but there are obviously people who would see it as objectification and suppression, and therefore it would if they allowed it to. Now, were you very good?
Exactly. And
Were,
that's okay.
were you any good in the sack?
I was pretty lousy at the beginning, and it was women who taught me how to be good.
Hmm,
They were my teachers.
good. All right, now for decades you were surrounded by more women than most men will ever experience. Do you think you truly understood women, or do you think you only saw what you wanted to see? Oh, that's a good question from a blog member. I like that.
Um, well, I always knew that it was impossible to truly go into every single woman's psyche because they're all so very different and they were all so very unique. So did I 100% completely understand every single one of them? No. Women are very complex beings. The way that they see and experience the world is so much different than a man. And so I did see women from a more man perspective, from a
Sure.
manly perspective, but I did try to understand the psyche behind their decision making, behind what they enjoyed, and why they did do the things that they do. So yeah,
Okay, well, what do you think about homosexuality, bisexuality, things like that? I mean, in
it's
my
all love,
opinion,
so
yeah,
it's good.
in my opinion, love is love is love. Okay.
Love is love.
Yeah. Now, somebody wrote here that they're actually starting a memorial with your faces in different stages. Do you think this is a good idea? Do you like it?
He says it's not necessary, but if people need that or want that, then that's okay.
I think it's sweet. All right,
Yeah.
the women in your life, this is from another blog member, she or he says, the women in your life seem to love you. Many say you respectfully open them up to freedom and owning their sexuality. How do you view the current Weinstein scandal from both a human and spiritual perspective? And do you see this bringing real change in the near future? And it's not only Weinstein; it's so many of the
That's a lot. Yeah.
media leads. Oh God, it's just so many people in Hollywood. So, what's your human and spiritual perspective? Perhaps they're the same.
Well, from a human perspective, when it comes to respect towards one another, respect towards each other's individuals, whether they are men, whether they're females, because believe it or not, even men get raped by
Oh
women.
yeah. Oh
Happens
yeah.
all the time. Nobody talks about it, but it does
Oh
happen all the
yeah.
time. I do feel that we all need to respect each other's boundaries and we need to respect each other's choices. So when it comes to forceful sex, then yeah, I'm against it. I'm
Of
against it.
course.
Um, from my human perspective as well. Now, I know there was an incident with my very close friend. Um, what's Bill Cosby?
Oh yeah. Okay.
He was a very close friend of mine, and things did happen with him and girls. it was really, that for me was really hard because him and me, um, we really have been friends for so long. So it was
Yeah.
really hard for me to say you're no longer my friend.
Mm.
However, I didn't agree with what he did. And I know some of this might have happened even at my mansion without my knowledge.
Oh, wow.
But he always denied it to me. So I kind of tried to, go, okay, tried to stay open to one thing, but also open to the ability, to the possibility that he did do it. So that was really a hard one for me to make a decision. Do I go that
Right.
direction or that direction? So I just tried to stay neutral in this situation. But just, I want everyone to know that, I do feel that, we need to respect each other's boundaries. Now, from a spiritual perspective, um, we always need to understand that sometimes these things do happen for a reason, that sometimes it is part of a contract. Now, the fact that all these things are now being revealed, that they're coming out, is actually, it's a good thing. It's a good,
Yes.
because it is empowering people to no longer take it and to stand up and to say no. This has been going on in Hollywood for centuries,
Oh. Hey,
forever,
there's
ever.
even with
You
Shirley
know,
Temple. Shirley Temple, when she was little, went into the office of, I don't know, producer or whatever, and he just unzipped and exposed himself. So yeah.
yeah.
So I'm
It's people with power. People have power over your career, and it's really hard to fight that in some way. There's a lot of fear there that your career will be ruined by this person or will never start because of this person.
yeah.
So it's a good thing that it's being exposed. And and this is a little bit off this subject, but I just want to mention that a lot of people are asking right now, why are all these bad things happening? Why is this such a mess? But you know what? It is all happening so we can learn and experience. Hey, we don't want this. We don't want that. We don't want this. We need to know what we don't want so we can then move forward into a direction of what we do want. And that is why we're experiencing so much negativity at this moment and why it's all being revealed as well. So
I
we
think
can
I
make.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, it's teaching people to be emotionally honest with others and set boundaries. And this one person that came forward gave all the other women courage to come forward. Now, and I will say that I'm very disappointed in people like Jane Fonda, who knew this was going on and didn't say a thing. And I think she is complicit. People like her should be complicit in the damage, like the rapes, etc., that happened uh, when she was already aware of this. She could have saved a lot of women from being abused and raped. I think she should be criminally charged for that, and others like her. You can't just look away. You can't look away
Well,
knowing that other women are going to be abused, molested, raped, etc.
this is Eric, and he's going. It
Oh,
is.
Eric, I forgot you were there. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
He's saying, I'm still here. Yeah, he's saying, it is. I know it's. It can seem like, why didn't you say something? Why didn't you protect him? Why didn't you stand up for him? But there's always a fear factor attached to it. And so, yeah, that's not an excuse. However, just understand that when it does happen, you have to make a choice for yourself. Do I get involved or do I not? And
Yeah.
whichever choice you choose, it is your free will. And it will come back to you in some way or form. It will affect you later on with maybe guilt, with maybe a lot of questions. So we should respect their choices as well if they wanted to stay out of it.
I totally
Um,
respect it. I mean, she was already famous. She wasn't, even if she wasn't and could have lost her job, I would not think twice about reporting him to the authorities if I knew that he was doing that and would continue to do that. It's not
yeah.
right.
But you're saying, unfortunately, not everyone thinks that way, and
That's
that's
right.
okay. That's okay. It's part of their learning process as well, so it's okay.
Okay. Were you friends with Michael Jackson? And do you think that he um, molested those children, those little boys?
Is this for Eric or is this for
Oh,
Hugh?
Hugh. Or either. I don't care.
He says he did know him. When it comes to the children, it feels like he did do some things that, from a human perspective, would be considered inappropriate. But it feels like it was more touching than anything else.
Well, maybe it was just do you think it's mostly just affection, or do you think it was like pedophile-ish?
I
Because
think there was a deep need of love, and there was a
yeah,
deep need of connecting to the child that was inside of him, because
yeah,
he was never allowed to be a child.
that's true. Okay. Yeah, I don't think he did anything nefarious. I think he just wanted to regain his
Cuddle
childhood and
and
cuddle. Yeah, the things that he never
and
got
cuddle,
to
and
enjoy.
there might have been some hands touching somewhere, but that's just part of the cuddling process
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah. But so I don't think it wasn't lust then.
Mm-mm.
It was affection.
Doesn't
Okay,
feel like there doesn't feel like it was a sexual thing at all.
okay. What about Bill Clinton? Were you friends with him? And was he at your mansion? Because he has a
He
reputation of being a hound dog.
He's making me feel like he does know him. He feels like he's protecting him right now,
Okay, that's cool.
so he
Yeah,
doesn't to disclose it if that's okay.
yeah, that's fine. You can say or not say whatever you want. Uh, okay. Let me see. Have you reincarnated? Do you plan to reincarnate?
Not at this moment. I'm not incarnated yet. Do I, from your linear perspective, do I come back? Yes, of course.
Okay. All right. What are you doing in the afterlife now?
I'm still adjusting. I'm still adjusting. I
Yeah.
am still getting guidance.
Okay.
Trying to readjust to the new body, to the new environment, to my new super psychic abilities.
Oh, okay. Now, what was your transition like?
It was very soft, is what I would call it. It almost felt like, it's like he's showing me like a big pillow, and he would just like land on it really softly, and then he would hop up and land a little bit further. It's almost like he's in space. He's just, how
Okay.
they walk on the moon.
Yeah.
And it feels like he just crossed over into a very soft environment. Looks like clouds, but it's almost like he's just hopping from cloud to cloud. um, and he's saying that it is so peaceful, and it is, everything just drops off. All the worries,
Oh,
all the
yeah.
stress, everything from the past seems to slowly disappear. You don't forget it, but the energies that are attached to everything you've done
Yeah.
disappear. That energy gets completely neutralized, and you just go into a very positive feeling. And I was greeted by my spiritual team first.
Oh, really?
I went straight to the spiritual team. Um, and He says after, yeah, they're just kind of explaining to him things, talking to him, almost like a therapist in a way.
Okay.
Um, After that, he says, my environment around me. So I was in this white room, he says, where they were communicating to me, where I was seeing my life's review. And all of a sudden, when all of that was being processed, the environment around me just dissolved, like it was air that just faded away like smoke.
Mm.
And so what I could see around me was a very bright, very green kind of environment, and I could see people that I had known over the years. My parents were there, my brother was there, my first wife was there, some of the women that worked with me. So a lot of familiar faces were just kind of waving at me from far away.
Yeah.
And I slowly went towards them, trying to figure out how to move. I figured out that you just have to kind of not take a step anymore, but you just have to think that you're stepping.
Oh, wow. That's so weird.
That was a new experience for me, not taking the physical steps.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to regress one more time to Bill Clinton. Are you not going to divulge about anything about Bill Clinton to protect me or to protect him? Or both? I don't know.
Let's just say, says that his journey on this planet isn't over yet and is still going to be important, and we do not want to, in some way or form, change the perspective of how people see him as of now.
Okay, that's fine. So you it was all green. Are you talking about your afterlife looks like kind of a park or?
Yeah, no, it looked more like I was in a forest.
Oh, okay. That's kind of like
Mhm.
Eric, I think, had the same similar thing. What was your life review like?
I thought it was extremely positive. I was very happy. I'm extremely happy with my life. I know a lot of people say what, but I am very happy with everything that I experienced, and I experienced so much. I had a very um, eventful life. There was just one thing after another after
Yeah,
another. I met so many people. I connected with so many people. And I did a lot of things that I'm very proud of. I liberated America from the restricted sex view.
good.
I was also anti-discrimination. When I started my TV show, The Playboy Mansion, I would invite colored people, singers, whoever, to come and join us, and we would be playing together, working together, eating, drinking together. That in those days, colored people and white people did not
Wow.
mingle.
Yeah, that's
There was no
awesome.
eating together, there was no drinking together. So I was very much attacked
Yeah.
by white people because I did that, and because I had
Terrible.
black bunnies, black bunnies. Oh my God, are you crazy? But
It's just
I'm
terrible.
very proud of that. That
Yeah.
I didn't see there was a separation. In my mind, there was no separation. I was pro gay rights, and there was just so many little things that I did for people that people don't even notice. There was a man once that I had heard of, and because he had gotten a blowjob, he was sent to prison because he got a blowjob.
Fr-
People,
From a
okay,
from
that's
a
how bad
black
it was
person?
in those days.
Just from a black
No, this
woman?
was a white person. This was a white person.
Oh
And he
God,
got
that's
a blowjob and he was thrown into jail because that's not done. Jesus will condemn you. So he literally went to jail for that. And so when I heard about that, I wrote an article about that and about, how crazy our society is for doing that to a person. And because of my article, he was released from jail. So
awesome.
I helped people, people that might not know that, but I did.
Yeah. Okay, so you built this empire by marketing a liberal view of sexuality, and we know how that developed because of your childhood in part. Is there anything in your life you're conservative about?
Well, I always like to consider myself really a romantic.
Okay, so
I was all about opening the doors to women. I was all about, buying them flowers and gifts. So in that aspect, I was very traditional in wooing a lady. So I do consider myself a romantic. When it comes to the rest, I was very liberated in my thinking, too liberated for my time. And so I did get a lot of struggle. And to this day, we're still being boycotted by governments, by activists, by feminists. If you
right-wing Christians probably.
Right, there's just a lot of different groups that are still trying to boycott us. Ever since the 80s, the boycotting got really bad. And now, even now, if you look at the internet, you can find a little bit of Playboy, but it's not as popular as, let's say, some of the other things. So we're still being boycotted in some way or form, and that's also why um, the magazine got less and less popular. We started selling less magazines because you started having the sex tape business, and you
Yeah,
started having the internet and all of that.
it's
So our
true.
sales would go down,
Yeah.
but we weren't, in some way, from always kind of boycotted out of that internet thing. So, but that's starting to change now. So we're
And,
starting to.
and I don't think you were ever into the real hard porn, the real raunchy stuff.
No, no, I was not. Okay, I was not about porn. You have to understand, he says, that in our days, a man's magazine was all about being a hero, and it was all about men going off on adventures without their women, doing things, hunting and this and that.
Right.
And what I really wanted to do, um, I wanted to, with Playboy, it really was a romantic connection between the sexes, but from a man's point of view. You
Okay.
know, that's really what the intention was. Um, and also, I think I added, um, because I had my bunnies and all of that, women all of a sudden seem to be allowed to be sexy and to
Okay.
have their own fantasies and to have their own desires. So that's what it really was about. It was just
Okay.
how men wanted to. It really was a men's perspective. I'm not gonna
Of
deny that.
course. Of
It
course.
wasn't from a female perspective. It was from a man's perspective. But if you look at the interviews and you look at what is in the magazine, it was always a very famous person that was a very influential man that was being interviewed. Martin Luther King Jr.,
Hmm.
Nixon. Um, and he's just summing up a whole bunch, but he's going too fast, so I can't, I can't keep up. And it was all about, what men enjoyed, what men loved. So it is from that really manly kind of perspective, but it wasn't about demeaning women, but it
Oh
was
yeah.
about showing them that they are sexy and they're allowed to be sexy, and men are allowed to have fantasies. It's not a sin. You're not going to be struck down by lightning because you have a naughty thought. So that's what my magazine was all about.
And hey, we have Cosmo and Playgirl. One last question. Why bunnies? Why bunnies? And then we'll do the rest in part two, people.
Okay. Well, he's saying that wasn't the original idea. Um, the original idea, it was supposed to be called Stag Party, and it was supposed to be a stag. It was supposed to be he showed me like a deer or something with
Okay.
kind
Oh, really?
of
Huh.
things. That's the original idea, but there was already a magazine, he says, that was called Stag, and so there was going to be conflict and rights on the name, and so
Okay.
we had to change it.
Okay.
And um, he says, believe it or not, but the bunny, um, it just seems cute, fuzzy, but still kind of naughty for some reason. Um, and I'm going to tell you something that I don't tell a lot of people, but when I was a little boy, I had a blankie.
Oh, don't worry. We won't tell anybody, will we, Emma?
It was red. I swear to God, I want the same thing. He says it was red and blue, and it had a bunny on it, and I had that blankie forever. And
Oh.
so masturbation in those days was a no-no. When your mother found you masturbating, you would get punished. You would get beat.
Uh-oh.
That was the devil inside of you. That needed to
Oh.
go. And so for some reason, I always connect it to that bunny, to a kind of a sexual adventures of me, because I would do it underneath the bed.
Oh my God, how cute. Your secret is safe with us. Well, that's a great place to end off. Thank you so much, Hugh. If you don't mind, we'll ask you again to come in next week. Is that okay with you?
That's fine by me. He says,
You're my new idol. You're awesome. Anyway, thank you so much, Emma. Thank you, Eric. We'll get you to
I
ask him
can't
a
get
question
this.
or two.
I can't get this picture of him and under his blanket out of my head.
Oh, yeah, probably the blanket makes it look like the bunny's jumping. Anyway, we won't go there. So thank you guys. Y'all check out Emma's site at emmanuelmacintosh.com, which I will put here. And thank you, Eric, for bringing in Hugh. Thank you so much, Hugh, for your enlightening words. And I love you guys.
Love you. Bye.
Bye bye.